Assume you're standing in front of an ATM, and suddenly, it starts spitting out stacks of cash. This is the 3D documentary of one of the most daring ATM heists in history, led by Carbanak Group, a heist that involved many people and draining millions in just hours.
We track all the footage from the ATMs.
You know that something has happened.
At least 500 police officers checking the CCTV.
It's very hard to arrest a piece of code.
The gang, which has been dubbed Carbanak.
Carbanak.
Money, green. It all started with a dream. Getting rich in the rush, now I mean. Money, green.
The Carbanak Group was a global network of hackers gathered by a single mission, breaching ATM systems and stealing vast amounts of money without leaving a trace. But to begin, they needed a way in. They started by targeting a mid-level employee in a Ukrainian bank. His email credentials were compromised and used to distribute malicious attachments to co-workers. One of those colleagues was a trusted but slightly careless bank employee. He received such an email with an official-sounding Word document attached, and the gates for the hackers opened in April of 2014. When the file opened, it downloaded and installed malware that created a secret backdoor for the hackers. Once inside, the hackers remotely installed resource-heavy software and intentionally slowed the guy's computer, knowing he'd eventually call IT. As the IT admin typed in his credentials, those keystrokes were captured, and among them, there was the password to the domain controller, which gave the hackers everything they needed. The hackers chose to wait and watch instead of striking immediately. They silently observed how employees handled money transfers, how ATM systems operated, and how transactions were audited. They collected info for months and understood the bank's operations rhythm to mimic legitimate activity that is hard to detect. Once they had full visibility, the hackers began to siphon off money using three primary techniques: balance manipulation. They temporarily increased internal account balances and transferred the extra funds to their own accounts. Since the balances returned to normal, the bank's hourly checks never flagged any suspicious activity. ATM cash-outs was the second method. By taking control of individual ATMs remotely, they could command machines to dispense cash on cue. Money mules, who were recruited through criminal networks, were dispatched to collect the cash as it poured out. And database modification, which involved altering core banking records and withdrawing the newly added balance. After success in Ukraine, the operation scaled. The hackers targeted banks across Russia, Europe, the United States, and Asia. They used new malware variants and adjusted their methods, keeping ahead of investigators. They were flexible, fast, and often anonymous. By 2015, they had compromised over 100 financial institutions in nearly 30 countries, with an estimated total theft of around $1 billion.
Criminal cyber gang has stolen as much as $1 billion from over 100 financial institutions over the past 2 years. The gang, which has been dubbed Carbanak.
In July 2016, they carried out a coordinated ATM attack on First Bank in Taipei. Over 70 million new Taiwan dollars were withdrawn through dozens of machines. But this time, the authorities were quicker. CCTV footage and hotel records led investigators to the money mules. While 19 fled the country, 3 were captured. One had tried hiding cash in a park. Another stashed money-filled suitcases in train station lockers. 2 men arrived to pick them up and were arrested while having brunch. Taiwanese police recovered around 90% of the stolen funds, a rare win against the group. Eventually, authorities traced the operation back to a man named Dennis K., a Ukrainian national living in Alicante, Spain. He kept a low profile, conducted most of his business in Bitcoin, and rarely left home. At the time of his arrest in March 2018, Dennis held around 15,000 Bitcoin, worth over $160 million back then, more than $1 billion today. Authorities seized luxury vehicles, valuables, and cryptocurrency, but much of the stolen money remained hidden. Dennis may have been a key figure, but Carbanak was no solo act. Experts estimate the group had between 10 to 30 members, possibly more. Over time, their tools and tactics were picked up by other cybercrime collectives, Cobalt Group, Cobalt Spider, and others. In the end, the entire operation hinged on a simple, avoidable mistake: one employee opening a malicious file. The vulnerability exploited by the hackers had already been patched 3 years prior, but because the employee hadn't updated his software, the door was still open.